Hello everyone, you are watching Saheb Academy. If you like our videos, then please subscribe to our channel and also hit the bell icon for the regular updates, and also follow us on Instagram, Saheb Academy. Now let's go to the video.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the fourth video of process costing chapter. Now in this video we're going to move on to the next topic of process costing, that is WIP, equivalent units. As I told you that there are three different types of questions can be asked from process costing. The first one was the basic one, and we have seen two problems of the basic one, but we haven't seen with stock account. Okay, we'll see that later, but it's not mostly asked in the exam, so we'll see that later. All right, so now let's start this new topic, WIP equivalent units. We have to understand this logically. What are equivalent units? What is the WIP concept? And then we are going to solve the problems on these type of questions in the coming videos, 5th and 6th videos. Here in this video we are going to understand logically and conceptually what are equivalent units and what is WIP, and what we have to do, how do we have to solve these type of questions. That's what we're going to discuss in this video. Fine, so let's start this video. Now first let's have an overview of this WIP topic of process costing. See here, the questions of work in progress, you can solve them either by FIFO method, first in first out method, or you can also solve it through weighted average method, WAM method, right? So now in the question what will happen is sometimes the question will be silent and sometimes the question will specifically tell you which method to use. If they specifically tell you, then that's fine, you can easily understand and use whichever method that's asked there. Now if the question is silent, then there are some hints in the question through which you can understand which method you have to use. Okay, while solving the problem in the coming videos, we'll see when the question is silent how to choose the method. Okay, so now one more thing is there, that WIP question can be solved by FIFO or WAM, but the information and the requirement of WIP question can be different. See, sometime what will happen, sometime they will give you the information of the first process itself. If they do that, then what you have to do, you have to prepare the process 1 account. Okay, simple. But sometime what will happen, sometime the WIP question, they will give you subsequent process information. They will give you the information of process 2 or process 4 or process 5, something like that. Okay, not process 1. Other than process 1, some information will be given to you and you will have to prepare that process account. For example, process 2 information is given and you have to prepare process 2 account. Okay, so you can see that in FIFO also there are two different types of question, first process or subsequent process. First process, subsequent process also in WAM method. Okay, basically these two are methods of solving the WIP question, but the information that will be given in the question could be what, first process or other than first process, subsequent process. So if subsequent process information is given, then you have to solve it a bit differently. We'll see that, don't worry. Okay, so first what we're going to do is we are going to see FIFO method and we are going to focus on this type of question, where the first process information is given. All right, so now in this video we are not going to see FIFO or this. No, what we're going to do in this video, we're just going to understand what is WIP, what is equivalent units, and all this concept and logics. Fine, from the next video what we're going to do, we are going to start with the FIFO method and first process question. Okay, fine, so let's start understanding what is WIP and everything. Now let's understand the concept of work in progress, and I feel like you all know what is work in progress. It's a simple term actually, isn't it? The work that is not completed, that is unfinished, it is in progress. That is what is meant by work in progress. It's a simple term. So since production is a continuous activity, there may be some incomplete production at the end of an accounting period. For example, let's say we are talking about factory. Now in factory, the work will be what, the production, it will be a continuous activity. Even if the accounting period is ending, does the work ends? Of course not. The work will be continuously going on. For example, if this is 31st March of the year, end of an accounting period, and what will happen? Do you think that we have holiday or something like that? No, of course not. The work will be continuously going on. Okay, the period ends only in the books of accounts. Only the books. So that's what, it's a continuous activity. Now let's understand with an example this work in progress. Let's say you are working in a factory and in the evening you had put in some raw materials into the machinery. Fine, so now what will happen, the March 31st, let's say today is March 31st, and you have put the raw material into the machinery and it's being processed, and let's say the day was over and you went to the home. Fine, so now tomorrow you came on 1st April, what happened? Still that is not ready, the machinery was off, right? Now what you have to do, on 1st April you might have to incur additional cost, the pending cost. For example, let's say 50% work was done yesterday. Now today on 1st April, again you have to start the machinery, you have to do all that process and you have to complete that remaining 50% of the work. Then only what will happen, that whatever was there, that raw material will be converted into properly output of that process, isn't it? So On March 31st, when the day ended, on that date, whatever that was there in the machinery, yeah, what is that? That is called closing work in progress. Yeah, on the closing date, whatever raw material or whatever that was there which was incomplete, yeah, which was not completed, some pending work had to be done, that is called closing work in progress. And tomorrow on 1st April, what happened? Whatever that was left, the same thing, that same closing WIP on 1st April will be opening WIP. On that opening WIP, what the workers will have to do, they will have to work the remaining whatever work that is required, they will do that, yeah, and the remaining cost will be incurred on that, and then only that opening WIP will be converted into what? Finished output, isn't it, of that process. Yes, so that's what they are saying. Since production is a continuous activity, there may be some incomplete production at the end of an accounting period. If this is the end of the accounting period, if there is incomplete production over here, this is closing WIP, and then that same thing on the the very next day on 1st April becomes what? It becomes opening WIP. Is that clear? Yeah. So incomplete units mean those units on which percentage of completion is not equal to 100%. Yeah, see here, not equal to 100% with regards to all elements of cost. And there are 3 different elements of cost: material, labor, overhead. Yeah, these 3 different types of costs you have to incur to make a finished output, right? So now what might have happened, just for an example, let's say this March 31st, right? So all the material costs had been incurred on that, yeah, 100% of material cost, but let's say the 50% work was done, so labor 50% additionally pending you have to do in the new period, yeah, in the current period. And then overhead also, let's say the expenses were required in the next period, 50%. Fine. So this is what will happen. The percentage of completion will not be equal to 100%, and you have to see this what with regards to all elements of cost: material, labor, overhead, like that. It could be different. You can't say just like that 50% work is done. No, you can't do that. You have to see it by connection, yeah, connecting it with the material, labor, and overhead. These are 3 different main component of cost, yeah, I mean the element of cost, right? Fine. Now let's take one more example to understand. See here, we are talking about here one process A, yeah, let's say this is the borderline 31st March, and let's say from this process A, at the end on 31st March, the output came of 500 units. Output came of 500 units, yeah. On this 500 units, 100% of work was done as regard to material, labor, overhead, everything was done. These were ready, which were transferred to the process B. This output 500 was transferred to process B. Okay, then what happened? Then this 31st March is coming in between, right? And then there was also incomplete production. There was also incomplete production of 100 units. Now on these 100 units, what is happening? It is incomplete production. As I said, you have to see that with regards to all elements of cost. Now as regards to all elements of cost, see here, material, let's say material was 100%, yeah, all the material cost was incurred on this 100 units, but the labor was incurred only 50% on that, and overhead also only 50% on that. And that's what will happen mostly in the exam questions, yeah, when they will give you this, yeah, what they will do is they will give you material, yeah, a separate percentage will be given, but for the labor and overhead, 99% of the time the percentage of completion as regard to labor and overhead will be 50%, not 50%, I mean same labor and overhead will be same. Okay, fine. So what did I say? There is 100 units over here, incomplete production, and these are the percentage of completion as regard to the element of cost: material, labor, overhead, 100%, 50%, 50%. Fine. So what is this? At the end of the period, you have incomplete production. What is this? This is closing WIP, closing work in progress. This is the units that are there in the machinery. The entire work is not completed. This is closing WIP. Now the very next day, 1st April, in the same process I'm talking about, I'm not talking about process B, in the same process A, the very next day on 1st April, what will happen? When the factory will be open, when the machinery will be switched on, they will see that in the machinery we have incompleted 100 units. We have 100 units that are not completed, that are not processed completely. So now what will happen? The pending work which is required will be done in this period. Isn't it simple, right? The pending work, some work was done over here, now some work will be done over here. Is that clear? Right. And then what they will do, that thing they will finish, and then fresh input will also be there. Yeah, now they have to prepare, right? So they will input additionally raw material of 800 units and process that in the machinery. And then what will happen? Let's say again 31st March came, just for an example. Okay, just for an example. Actually what happens is monthly statements are prepared. Yeah, but here let's talk about year. Yeah, 31st March is coming over here, let's say. So now let's say the same instance we are talking, let's say normal loss of 50 units, abnormal loss is 50 units, okay, just for an example. And the output, ready output, finished output came out of the process, out of the machinery, 600 units, which were transferred to the next process, process B. All right, and then what happened? And then, as I said, this is 31st March, the factory was closed, and let's say in the machinery there was closing WIP of 200 units. Yeah, 200 units are still in their machinery, and these are what? These are incomplete production. These are incomplete production. This is closing WIP. The work is not completed 100% as regard to material, labor, overhead. Fine. So now this is the problem we have. There is opening WIP and closing WIP. Now why do we have different category of question? WIP question, what is that? See, whenever you have opening WIP and closing WIP given to you in the question, you can understand that you have got WIP question. But what is different? Yeah, we have seen all these things in the previous problem also. Yeah, just the new thing over here is we can see opening WIP and closing WIP. Yeah, even though if these things are coming, what is the change? What is the change? Can't we just directly do as we used to do? What we used to do in the previous problems, we used to calculate cost per unit. How we used to do that? We used to take the total cost. Let me show you that the formula properly. What we used to do? Total debit in process account minus normal loss scrap value. Yeah, if no value, then we used to take 0, and then we used to divide by total units input in process account, 9,400, and then what we used to do? Normal loss unit minus 940. Yeah, that's what we used to do, and we used to get cost per unit, and we used to also call that as star. Yeah, CPU, and we used to value abnormal loss or abnormal gain at that, and also the finished output. Yeah, and as well as the finished stock, we used to value at star, at cost per unit. Can't we do that directly for the closing WIP also? We can, right? We can do that. No, you can't do that. Why can't you do that? See, it's very simple logic. You can't do that because, see here, just for an example, see this process account, this illustration. Now opening WIP is there, closing WIP is there, isn't it? Yes. And on opening WIP, what you had done on opening WIP, the pending work you had done in this period, and in closing WIP also you had done some work on that. This is incomplete production. As I said, that they're incomplete as regard to all elements of cost, material, labor, overhead. So maybe material has been done 100%, but labor and overhead has been done 50%, 60%, 40%, something like that. Yeah, whatever the question says, it's like that. Yeah, so the percentage of completion as regard to the elements of cost is different for the closing WIP. You have not completed that by 100%. No, you can value CPU, these things, process B and abnormal loss, but it will be completely ridiculous to use the CPU. You can't use CPU cost per unit. Yeah, you will value the normal loss same only, scrap only. Yeah, that will not change. But the problem here we have, the difficulty here we have in valuing these three different items: the abnormal loss, the output, and the closing WIP. Yeah, because these costs which you have incurred in this period, right, of opening WIP, you have taken 50,000, the cost which you have incurred in the previous period. Yeah, and then in this period you have incurred these costs 4 lakh, 2 lakh, 1 lakh, for example, just for an example. Yeah, and material, let's say material has been has been completed 100% here in closing WIP, but for labor and overhead it is not 100%. Maybe it's 40%, 30%, like that. So that's why the total cost cannot be allocated to closing WIP. You can't do that. If you do that, that's completely ridiculous. Yeah, you can't do that. We have to use a different strategy, a different technique. Yeah, and that technique is of equivalent production units. We have to prepare the statement of equivalent units, cost per unit, and we have to apportion the cost. Okay, we'll come to that. So that's the problem we have. We can't value this, and this problem is coming only of what? This problem is coming only about these three different types. Yeah, abnormal loss, abnormal gain, and the output transferred to next process, and closing WIP. Yeah, you can value the normal loss as usual only, at the scrap only. You all know that. Yeah, that's what you're gonna do. But for these items which you used to value them at CPU, at star in the previous problems, yeah, now here you have to value them by preparing all the statements and everything. Okay, so let me just show you again that process account format. On the format, I mean this. See, you used to value that at star, right? Now you can't do that. You have to prepare the statements and all. So the concept which you have to understand is, see here, therefore such incomplete production units are known as WIP. Of course you know that it is valued, this WIP is valued in terms of equivalent production units. Okay, so we have to understand what is equivalent units concept. Yeah, so let's get to that. Yeah, you're clear with the work in progress and this logic. Yeah, what problem we have, we can't value this at star at CPU, we have to use a different approach, and that's what we have to understand. So let's understand the logic and the concept of equivalent production units. Let's do that. Now let's understand the concept of equivalent units and what do we do here actually. Yeah, so see, all that we do here is we convert the incomplete production units into equivalent completed units. Okay, that's all we do. You know, we take the incomplete production actual units, yeah, how much you are working on, and then you multiply with that with the percentage of work done, you will get equivalent units, these imaginary units which we will use only for the calculation purpose. Okay, that's all. Let's take an example to understand this. Okay, let's say, basic example, let's say you're working in a pen factory, all right, and today let's say you have worked on 2 pen, and on each of the pen you have worked 50%. Yeah, 50% work is done. Now rather than saying that you are working or you have worked today on 2 pen 50%, can you not say that you have worked on 1 pen 100%? Yeah, you have completed, you have produced 1 pen. Yeah, you have done the work 100% on 1 pen. Can you not say that? Of course you can, and it will be true, right? It will be what? It makes sense, it's logical. Yeah, so how did you do that? See, it's very simple. All you did here was you took 2 pen, yeah, on which you have worked 50%, you multiply 2 actual units into 50%, yeah, amount of work done, percentage of work done, you multiply, you get 1, that is the equivalent unit. Yeah, you have converted the partially completed incomplete production units into what? Finished equivalent unit, completed equivalent units. That's how we are going to do the things over here. Yeah, let's take a broader example to understand this. And what is the problem here? You already know the problem. We have opening and closing WIP, and to value the closing WIP, we can't use that old method, CPU method, star method, yeah, cost per unit. We have to use a different approach, and I told you we have to use this equivalent units approach. Yeah, so why do we do that? See, it's very simple. Now here what is happening, closing WIP, all the cost, yeah, as regard to material, labor and overhead is not fully incurred on this closing WIP. Yeah, so all these items, abnormal loss, process B and closing WIP, are not at par. Process B is 100% completed, abnormal loss might be 100% or 50% completed, and closing WIP is somewhat differently completed. Yeah, so you have what? You have units on which some is 100% done, some is 50% done, some is 25% done. So you can't just take the total cost and use that old method. You can't do that. What you have to do is you have to bring these units into a par level, into what? Into imaginary units which is equivalent and as good as completed units. Okay, you have to bring them at a par, at a same level, so that the calculation can be proper. All right, so that's what you have to do. Okay, let's understand this. See, it's very simple. Let's take this broader example I was talking about. Let's say you have incurred material cost of 1,10,000 in a process. Fine, and you have produced these units till now. All right, actual units 1,000. Okay, 1,000 which 100% work is done, and then you have produced 2,500 units on which 50% work is done, and then 2,000 units on which 25% work is done. Okay, so in total you have 5,500 units. Now tell me how you are going to value this. Okay, now just for an example, I will tell you that this is abnormal loss, this is closing WIP, this is output. How you're going to value these items? You can't value these items just like that, just like that. I mean the old method. Yeah, you can't just take the total cost and divide by the quantity. The total cost is 1,10,000 divided by 5,500. Yeah, 5,500. If you do that, then what does it mean? It means that 20 rupees has been allocated to each of the units. Is it true? Is it true? It's not true. Why is it not true? Because as I said that percentage of completion with regards to all element of cost, material, labor, overhead is not 100% on all these units. So you cannot take this whole cost 1,10,000 and allocate it to all these units on equal basis. You can't do that. Yeah, what you have to do is you have to make use of equivalent production units. All right, so what you have to do is, yeah, this 20 will be completely ridiculous. You can't do that. What you have to do, you have to use equivalent units approach. What is this equivalent units approach? See, it's very simple. what we do here is we take that actual units into percentage of work done. Yeah, so that's equal to 1000 units only, because these were 100% completed. So of course equivalent units will also be the same number of units. Yeah, same number of units, right? Then what do you have? You have here 2500 incomplete units, which on which 50% work is done. So you're just gonna multiply these two, you will get equivalent units. Yeah, I've just shown you over here, right? 2 units into 50%, 1 unit. The same thing you have to do. 2500 into 50%, 0.50, that's equal to 1250. This is the equivalent unit. Well, now what's the logic and what's the interpretation and understanding of this? See, it's very simple. If 50% cost of material has been incurred on this, yeah, and you were able to produce 2500 quantity with that much money, yeah, with some amount of money, yeah, with that money, certain amount of money, you were able to produce 2500 incomplete units, 50% incomplete units. Yeah, what you can do with that same amount of money, you can produce 1250 fully completed units. That's the logic, that's the understanding. That same amount of money, rather than producing 2500, you can produce 1250. That's the understanding of this. Okay, but these are actually imaginary units only. As I told you, to bring everything at same level, at a par level, what we do, we use this equivalent units. Since all these items are what, 100% work done, 50% work done, 25% work done, 60% work done, like that, right? So what we can doing over here, we are just converting all of them into 100%. Yeah, we are making them at a par level. All right, so that's what, with some amount of money, yeah, with a certain amount of money, you were able to produce 2500, 50% work done units, incomplete units. With that same amount of money, you can produce 1250 fully completed units. All right, okay, so that's the understanding. And then you have here 2000. So this 2000 also you have to convert 2000 into percentage of work done, 25%. Yeah, 25%, 25 divided by 100, right? So that's 500, isn't it? The same thing. Okay, either do it the conventional way or 2000 into 0.25, it's same only. All right, don't think I have done something differently, no. So 2000 into 25%, that's 500. All right, so these are the equivalent units you have. And if you add up all the equivalent units, 500 plus 500 plus 1250 plus 1000, that's equal to what? That's equal to 2750. Yeah, so 5500 incomplete units have been converted into 2750 equivalent units. So it means that with 1,10,000 you were able to produce 5500 incomplete units, and with that same amount of money you can produce 2750 fully completed equivalent units. Okay, does that make sense? This is the basic idea, the concept, the logic of equivalent units. Okay, did it make sense to you? Simple, right? It's very simple. Fine. So now once you have equivalent units, you can make use of these equivalent units. All right, because you have brought everything at a par level. Now what you can do, you can take that material cost 1,10,000 divided by the equivalent units. Okay, that is divided by what? 2750 divided by 2750. What do you get? You get 40. Now this is the proper cost per unit. This is the proper cost per unit. If equivalent unit is 1, then this is what? This is the cost per unit of one equivalent unit. Now what you can do? Now easily you can use 40 for this 1000 units. Okay, 40 rupees for 1000 units, because this is 100% work done. Okay, and then if you want to value this 2500, what are you going to do? You are going to find out 50% of that. Okay, so into 0.50, that is equal to 20. So 20 into 2500, this is the value of these items. And then to value this, what are you going to do? Of that rupees 40, that equivalent price, yeah, you will take that into 25%, 0.25, that's equal to 10 rupees. You're going to value this 2000 at 10 rupees, and it would be a proper allocation of cost. Okay, this is what easily you can do. If you say 60%, what you're going to do? 40 rupees into 0.60, that's equal to 24 into, let's say, 1000 units additionally we had, just for an example. Okay, so to 24,000, like that. Did you understand the logic, what we did over here? The understanding of equivalent units, it was we just converted the incomplete production units into equivalent completed units to bring everything at a par level, at a same level, all these things, so that we can find out the proper cost per unit. And then depending upon the percentages, you can easily use what? you can just take the, divide this into 50%, 25% and get the cost and multiply it with the units. All right, so this is what you have to do. Or what you can do, just take the 40 and 1250, you'll get the same thing. 1250 into 40, the same thing, 50,000. Yeah, 40 into 1250 is also 50,000, or 40 into 50% into 50%, that is 20 into 2500, that is also 50,000. Is that clear? This is what you have to do. Now this is the basic concept and the logic of equivalent units which we are going to use. Now let's understand how we are going to solve that WIP questions. All right, so we're just going to see the technique, okay, just an overview, and then we will end this video. Okay, now see here how to solve WIP question. See, the first step that you have to do is you have to prepare the incomplete process account. Now the process account will the same thing only, right? Whatever you were doing till now, the process account, the same thing you have to do, isn't it? Are you gonna do anything differently? Of course not. The same thing you're gonna do, but the problem you will have is you will not be able to value these three different items, or if you have abnormal gain, yeah, you'll not be able to value these three different items, and you have to use a different approach. Fine, so you will do till here. Okay, you will do everything, whatever that is there you can do. You will leave these three different spaces: abnormal loss, process 2, yeah, I mean the output, and the closing WIP. These three different valuation you have to do. Yeah, you will stop at that. Okay, you will pause your process account. Yeah, you will stop that, and then what you will do, second step, you will prepare statement of equivalent units. Now I have just explained in that example only the equivalent units of regards to material cost, but now in the question what will happen? In the question you have to prepare equivalent units, the statement of equivalent units for material, for labor, for overhead, for each and everything you have to do separately. But mainly in the exam what happens, labor and overhead percentage will be same mostly 99% of the time, so that's why you will do material one column, okay, and labor and overhead you will do together in one column. Okay, we'll see that while solving the problem, don't worry. So just understand that you will prepare statement of equivalent units, and from here you will get two different units, okay, M and L. Okay, L means what? For labor as well as overhead combined. Okay, so you will get M and you will get L. You will see that while solving the problem, don't worry. Here I'm just giving you an overview. First, prepare the incomplete process account. Okay, you will do everything in the process account except what? Abnormal loss, the output, and the closing WIP. The amounts you will leave empty. Fine. Okay, then what you're gonna do? Statement of equivalent units. You will calculate the equivalent units as regard to material, as regard to labor, as regard to overhead, yeah, of everything, of each and every item. Abnormal loss you will consider, closing WIP, opening WIP, yeah. Normal loss you will take everything nil. We'll see that. Okay, abnormal loss, everything. Fine. So you will do that, and you will find the total, yeah, and the total of M and total of L you will find. Okay, L means labor and overhead combined. All right, and then what are you going to do? In the third step you are going to find the cost per unit. Okay, statement of cost per unit. In the statement of cost per unit, what you're going to do is you are going to take the total material cost and the total labor and overhead cost, and then some modifications is there. Normal loss will be subtracted, I mean the scrap value will be subtracted, like that. Yeah, so some modification is there in here, the amounts, and then you're going to divide it by equivalent units, M and L. What you're going to get? You're going to get CPU, cost per unit, and that CPU will call it as MX and LX. How did we get in that example? See here in this example, when we divided the total cost by the equivalent units, how did we get this CPU? Yeah, we call that as MX and LX. Yeah, see, you will get the cost of material. How did you get here? 40 just for the material. Similarly for the labor and overhead also you will get a different price, different cost per unit. Okay, previously in previous problem we used to have only one CPU. Here it's not like that. Here the percentage of work is completely different for each and every item, right? For each and every element of cost. That's why the CPU cost per unit of each and every element will be different. For material it will be different, for labor it will be different, for overhead it will be different. But as I said, 99% of the time in the exam, labor and overhead will be combined. The percentages will be same. So MX and LX. Is that clear? Fine. So that's what you have to do. You will get these two things after dividing these two. Then the fourth step would be what? Statement of cost apportionment. Here you will apportion the cost. You will use this MX and LX, and in the equivalent units, what are the quantities of abnormal loss, what are the quantities of closing WIP, those quantities, equivalent units quantities you will use, and specific, not the total one, the specific ones and you're going to multiply it with mx and lx. Yeah, so many equations you'll be making, not equations actually, just solving, just multiplying and adding it up, multiplying and adding it up. That's what you're going to do, and you're going to find out the value of closing WIP, abnormal loss, and put and process, opening WIP. Yeah, all the values you will find. Yeah, not the opening WIP, the answers from opening WIP and put and process, you will add it up together, okay, and you will take it in the process 2. Yeah, whatever that is transferred to the next process. And then closing WIP also, yeah, you will find it over here after doing that calculation. And then for the abnormal loss also you will find, but mostly what we do is we calculate abnormal loss, and then as a rounding off and all those things, what we do is we take abnormal loss as a balancing figure. Yeah, we'll calculate closing WIP in process 2 of course, and we'll calculate abnormal loss also, but maybe due to rounding off, what can happen, some 6 rupees, 5 rupees, 4 rupees, 2 rupees difference can come, and that difference you have to adjust in abnormal loss. You will take abnormal loss as always as a balancing figure, okay, that way you will not make a mistake, okay. Because of conservatism principle, what are you going to do, you are going to anticipate losses, right? So that's why you are going to 5 rupees, 6 rupees loss will be adjusted in abnormal loss itself, okay, fine. So this is just the overview of how you're going to solve the WIP question, fine. So this is it for this video. Yeah, I think you have understood, you're clear with the equivalent units concept, WIP concept, what we have to do over here, and these things what we have to do. And then the fifth step would be what? The fifth step would be complete process account, right? Because here in the first process you have incomplete process account. Yeah, you haven't inserted the amounts. In the fifth step, what you're going to do, you are going to finish off the process account. You're going to fill all the amounts which you have found out in the statement of cost apportionment. Is that clear? Easy. So this is what you have to do, okay? So from the next video onwards, what we're going to do, we are going to go on solving the 5-4 question of first process, fine, and that video will only be for Silver Club, okay? So stay tuned, okay? Okay then, see you in the next video. Bye.